Life has a way of throwing us into situations we never imagined. What happens when the lines between love, family, and boundaries blur? Today we dive into a deeply emotional story that will leave you questioning the complexities of human relationships. Stay with me. This one is unforgettable. There are moments in life you never imagine will happen to you, not in a million years. You hear about them, maybe watch them play out in movies, and the thought keeps repeating in your mind. That happens to other people, not me. But sometimes life takes that comforting belief and shatters it in an instant. That day at the farmhouse marked a pivotal moment in my life, one I'll never forget. To give you some context, my name is Ava. I'm 55 years old, and a few years ago I lost my husband, James. He was the love of my life, and his absence still weighs heavily on me. But over time, you learn to keep moving forward, or at least, you try. Thankfully, my daughter Mia has been a constant source of support. She's my pride and joy, 33 years old, intelligent, beautiful, and determined. As a committed engineer, she's carved out her own path in life. Her husband, Wesley, seems like a wonderful match for her. At 40, he's attractive, successful in his own engineering career, and known for being a devoted family man with a calming presence. Wesley and Mia have been married for 5 years, and I've never had any reason to doubt him. But as life often proves, the most startling moments tend to arise when everything appears perfect. It all began a few weeks ago. Sometimes the most unexpected moments happen in the most familiar places. Let's take a closer look at how this story unfolded. I decided to visit the old family farmhouse. This property isn't just real estate to me. It holds countless memories from my childhood. Although it's been somewhat neglected in recent years, it's still a treasure in my heart. James and I used to visit often, but after his passing, it was left untouched. I felt it was time to restore the place, so I invited Mia and Wesley for a trip, a mix of a family vacation and some light work around the house. Everything began as usual. When Mia and Wesley arrived, they were their usual kind and cheerful selves. Wesley was always helpful, and that day was no exception. But over the course of that quiet weekend at the farmhouse, something unexpected occurred. It started subtly, small glances, silences that lingered just a bit too long, and a tension I couldn't explain. From the outside, nothing seemed amiss, but I noticed. At first I dismissed it as my imagination, or perhaps my loneliness playing tricks on me. But my instincts were right. That weekend, something shifted between Wesley and me, transforming a simple family gathering into something far more complex. Have you ever felt a moment so intense it changed everything? Let's explore how this tension unfolded. The morning seemed typical. The work at the farm felt endless. Mia was busy sanding old chairs on the porch, occasionally calling out to Wesley for help. He would respond briefly, offering short answers before turning away. Inside, I had decided to tackle cleaning the dusty bookshelf. The cracked shelves and old books bore the marks of time. "Mom, is everything okay?" Mia's voice called from the porch. I waved at her through the window. "Everything's fine, sweetie," I replied. And it was fine, or at least it seemed to be. Then Wesley walked in. He wore a grey t-shirt, his hands casually tucked into his pockets, exuding his usual confidence. He stopped in the doorway, his gaze fixed on me. "You're really diving into this, Ava," he said with a smile. "Someone has to," I replied, shrugging lightly as I returned an old book to the shelf. Dust particles floated in the sunlight, drawing my attention to the top shelf. It looked untouched for years. I pulled over a ladder and positioned it in front of the bookcase. Instead of leaving, Wesley stayed, standing motionless in the middle of the room. As I climbed the ladder, I muttered to myself, "I'll need to stretch a bit further," but I can manage. That day, I wore a light skirt, and having Wesley standing below me made me uneasy. I tried to focus on the task at hand, reaching for the book at the top of the shelf. But when I glanced down for just a moment, I saw his eyes fixed on me. As I continued reaching, Wesley suddenly spoke. "Hold on, Ava. Let me steady the ladder to keep it safe." "There's no need," I responded. "It's sturdy enough." But he had already stepped forward, gripping both sides of the ladder as though protecting me. The unease within me grew, yet I couldn't bring myself to say anything. As I stretched to reach the farthest books, the fact that Wesley remained there, holding the ladder despite it being unnecessary, unsettled me deeply. It felt like his eyes were tracking my every move. His hands still gripped the ladder firmly, but I could sense his gaze lingering on me. When I placed the final book on the shelf, I muttered, "All done." My hands were dusty, and I was eager to climb down. Step by step I descended, noticing how Wesley's eyes seemed to follow me. When I reached the last step, we found ourselves face to face. "You did a fantastic job," he said, his voice steady and low, but there was something unspoken beneath his tone. "Oh, it was just some dusty old books," I replied with a shrug, trying to laugh it off. Yet instead of sharing a smile, I found myself caught by the expression on his face. His eyes held an intensity I couldn't quite define. Maybe I'd never observed Wesley this closely before. His sharp features seemed even more striking now, but his gaze, it was overwhelming. A sudden warmth crept over me during the silence that followed, stirring an odd mix of emotions. My heart raced uncontrollably, an unfamiliar blend of excitement and guilt. Wesley's lips twitched, like he wanted to say something, but before he could, Mia's voice rang out from outside. "Mom, Wesley, I made tea. Let's take a break." As the door opened, Mia entered, lively as always, carrying a pitcher and a few glasses. Her presence shattered the tension in the room instantly. "Oh, the bookshelf's finally done," she exclaimed cheerfully. "Mom, let Wesley help you relax. I'll finish the sanding and then I'll help out." Wesley stepped back, turning to Mia with a small smile. "Ava's already done an amazing job. She should probably just take over the whole thing," he joked. As Mia laughed, I quickly focused on dusting off my hands. The shift in atmosphere was exactly what I needed to compose myself. I still felt rattled by the strange energy that had filled the room moments earlier. Inside, something was stirring. Wesley's gaze, the quiet tension, it all lingered in my mind. Sometimes life forces us to confront feelings we never expected. What happens next will leave you questioning everything. I heard Wesley say, "Well, who's making the tea?" in a light-hearted tone, but my thoughts were scattered. Trying to ground myself, I grabbed the tea tray from Mia. "You keep working outside. I'll handle the tea," I said, heading toward the kitchen. But as I walked, I couldn't shake the memory of Wesley's expression. I felt anger bubbling up within me, anger at myself. Feeling this way about my son-in-law was utterly inappropriate. Yet, no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't dismiss the feelings that had begun to grow. While arranging the tea glasses on the tray, my hands trembled. I blamed it on exhaustion. "Stop overthinking, Ava," I told myself. Just then, I noticed Wesley standing in the kitchen doorway. "Let me help," he said, stepping closer. "There's no need. I've got it," I replied too quickly. But Wesley had already moved beside me. He inspected the glasses, picked one up, and reached for the kettle. "Did you fill the kettle yourself?" "You always get the tea just right," he said casually, though his tone was soft and unsettlingly close. "Well, years of practice," I replied with a nervous smile. We were standing side by side, and when his arm brushed against mine, my body reacted in a way that surprised me. I took a step back, turning to put the teaspoon in the sink. As I moved, I hadn't realized Wesley was directly behind me. When I turned, we nearly collided. "Oh!" I gasped, stumbling slightly and leaning into his chest. His hands instinctively went to my waist to steady me. "Careful, Ava," he said in a low voice, his tone carrying something I couldn't define. Our eyes met, and for a moment the closeness felt startlingly real, too intimate. "You're tired, aren't you?" he asked, studying my face. "No, just a little distracted," I muttered, quickly pulling away. Wesley stepped back too, but the air between us had shifted entirely. Trying to calm my racing heart, I grabbed the tray. Just then, Mia's cheerful voice echoed from the living room. "Mom, is the tea ready? Wesley, hurry, I want to show you something." The tension dissolved as Wesley smiled faintly. "Let's not keep Mia waiting," he said, heading for the door. Before leaving, he gave me one last look. My hands trembled as I adjusted the glasses on the tray. I couldn't make sense of what had just happened. I wasn't even sure it meant anything at all, but I knew something had changed. Carrying the tray into the living room, I was greeted by Mia's bright smile. Wesley sat beside her, fully absorbed in whatever she was saying. Meanwhile, I felt as though I had crossed an invisible line without realizing it. Life doesn't always give us clear answers, but sometimes the hardest moments lead to the most profound growth. Let's see how this story unfolds. The next morning, Mia strolled into the garden, her excitement evident. She wandered among the flowers, brushing her hands over the blooms. "Mum, these flowers are gorgeous, but look, some of them are starting to wilt," she said. "I can't stand seeing them like this." "I haven't had the chance to care for them in a few seasons," I admitted. "The farm work and, well, time." Mia stayed quiet for a moment, her eyes fixed on the flowers. Then suddenly she turned toward me and declared, "I'm going to the city to buy some new flowers. I want to bring this garden back to how it used to be. Today." "Today?" I asked, surprised. "Yep, we'll get it done before the day ends. I'll be back tonight," she said confidently, heading toward the car. She called out to Wesley to see if he wanted to join her, but he raised his hands and smiled. "I'll stay here and help your mom," he replied. Mia glanced back at the garden one last time before hopping into the car, her mood light and cheerful. The sound of her car fading into the distance brought silence back to the farm. As the evening crept in, I settled near the fireplace, preparing some firewood. The cool air seeped through the old walls, and nothing felt more inviting than the warmth of a fire. Adjusting my skirt, I crouched to arrange the wood carefully, lost in the flickering flames. I let my thoughts drift, hoping to escape everything weighing on my mind. I hadn't noticed the door creak open until a voice from behind startled me. "You know, as beautiful as this farm is, you're just as beautiful," Wesley said warmly. The words caught me off guard, my breath hitching as I froze in place. Slowly I straightened up, my arms resting on my knees. "Wesley, you startled me," I said, forcing a nervous smile but not turning to face him. He took a few steps closer. "Sorry, I didn't mean to. It's just seeing you like this, so natural, so different." His voice was gentle, but there was an odd intensity to it. I stayed focused on the fireplace, pretending to tidy up. "Oh, come on, Wesley. It's just the dust from an old farm. Nothing special about me," I replied, attempting a laugh, though my voice betrayed the nervous excitement rising inside me. He didn't move. "I don't think you even realize it," he said, his tone dropping lower. "Realize what?" I asked, finally sitting upright and turning slightly toward him. I couldn't avoid his gaze. His eyes were fixed on me, unusually intense and unwavering. "How beautiful you are," he said with a slight smile. "I didn't expect you to be this strong, this incredible." Wesley stepped closer, placing his hands on my waist and pulling me toward him. Before I could think, I found myself kissing him back, completely overtaken by the moment. Time seemed to stop as his touch and his gaze consumed me. The glow from the fireplace lit the room with a warm hue, turning each kiss into something almost melodic. By the time we reached the couch, we were breathless, our clothes scattered across the floor. His hands roamed my body, igniting a fire within me. Each touch deepened our connection, pulling us closer together. His eyes never left mine, and it felt as though we were entirely lost in each other. The warmth of the flames only made the moment feel more intimate. Afterward, we lay side by side on the couch, silent except for the sound of our breathing. For half a minute, neither of us spoke, the quiet somehow making us feel even closer. Yet, within me, there was a restlessness I couldn't ignore. Without a word, I got up and went to take a shower. The cold water hit me like a jolt of reality, but it did little to wash away the tension from that moment. Even under the stream of water, Wesley's hands, his voice, and his gaze lingered in my mind. The water might have cleaned the dust from my skin, but it couldn't cleanse the guilt that clung to me. I felt tainted, as though I'd done something deeply wrong. That moment with Wesley had stripped away all my walls. But was it right? Especially with Mia, my daughter, home while it happened. Questions gnawed at me, filling me with doubt and shame. When I returned to my room, I heard faint sounds coming from Mia's room. A heavy weight settled in my chest. Mia hadn't said anything, likely sensing something was off. Her silence felt like a quiet trust I didn't deserve. As she went to bed without a word, I took a deep breath. I closed my eyes and told myself she could never know about what had happened between Wesley and me. The guilt tightened its grip on me, growing even stronger over the next few days. Mia began to notice the tension between me and Wesley. She picked up on my unease in the mornings and the way Wesley had grown quieter in the evenings. The strange distance between us seemed to stir questions in her mind. One morning at the breakfast table, Mia suddenly spoke up. "Mom, is something going on between you and Wesley? You two seem off." I took a slow sip of tea, letting out a shaky breath. I couldn't meet her eyes, the chaos in my mind overwhelming me. "No, Mia," I said, forcing my voice to sound steady, even as it cracked slightly. "Everything's fine. Sometimes people act strangely, but it's just a phase." Mia could see the unease in my expression, but she chose to trust me. She had always seen her mother as strong and composed, so even though doubt lingered in her eyes, she decided to believe everything was fine. In that moment, the guilt within me deepened. I couldn't bring myself to betray Mia's trust. Yet, ignoring what I was feeling became harder with every passing moment. The trust reflected in my daughter's eyes was something I didn't want to destroy. But hiding what had happened with Wesley was slowly wearing me down. Over time, a distance formed between Wesley and me. The memory of that unforgettable moment turned into a daily torment. The confusion within me grew with each passing day, filling my mind and heart with turmoil. I avoided saying anything to protect Mia from being upset, but every night when I closed my eyes, the weight of the secret consumed me. One evening, sitting alone in the farmhouse living room, I found myself asking again, should I tell Mia everything or keep it hidden? A hollow feeling grew inside me. The fear of losing my daughter, combined with the guilt of what I had experienced with Wesley, left me unable to find an answer. It felt like no matter what choice I made, it would be the wrong one. Life is messy and relationships are rarely black and white, but through understanding and communication, we can find a way forward. If this story resonated with you, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Long Life Wisdom for more thought-provoking content. Until next time, take care of